Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is my dear friend from Brazil. His name is Pablo. He is a CEO of a mushroom company called Ashe. He's a community ecosystem builder. He's a 5-acts coach and a business development expert, as well as working with many different plant medicines, with many different tribes from Brazil and neighboring countries. Welcome in, Pablo.
Thank you so much for having me here. Awesome to follow a little bit of your work outside of the work that we do together. So it's really nourishing for me and see the light that you spread. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, brother. Pablo and I, we work together in many different ways. We have a men's circle here in Vegas that we're running for the men out here. We're also have this really interesting experience working with a tribe from Colombia. Well, actually, it's 3 tribes, right?
4 in reality.
So there's the Kogis, the Wiwas, the Arawakas,
and there is a 4th one that I always miss the name because I'm not direct with them, but they are all part of the same Sierra Nevada mountain.
Yeah, so in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Colombia, there's these four tribes that live deep in the jungle, and they're leaders, you'd say, right? They're shamans, their medicine men are called Mamos, Mamos. And I have a really interesting story of how I found the Mamos, and so many synchronicities. And so I'd love to hear also your experience with them. You've shared a little bit with me, but I'd love to hear some more about how you got involved with them, the type of projects you've been doing with them and working on now. And then after that, I can dive a little bit into my story with them.
The Mamos are known as the big brothers among the Indigenous, and they have this ancient history, like the Dogon tribe almost, which tells a little bit about interplanetary traveling and like the before everything else, what was there. And there's this natural order which I got exposed to that is really beautiful to hear from them. Essentially, I got to know them 3 years ago in my first Injoy, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, gather of indigenous leaders outside of the UN. And it was really the first time I really saw them and got to hear their version of the story or some of the teachings that they were bringing on. And now, fast forward like 3 years later, after Injoy this year, I went to Colombia for the COP16, which is the COP of environmental economy actions. Like there's a lot involving like the preservation of biodiversity. And I had the luck to work with a group that's really close to the Mamos, so they actually stay with us in the house. Rogelio and Angel, they are the words and the spirits of like the ones that are not in the society, let's say, like in these big events, they only live in the mountains. So Rogelio and Angel are these guys that like talk with representation of a big portion of the Arhuacos and the Mamos. And that was the more recently work towards the preservation of their land. Like they have about 7,000 hectares right now that they are trying to preserve after so much actions that has been taken against them with like occupation, like the traffickants, the narco traffickants in Colombia as well took some of the land. some mining happened, and the restoration of this land includes a plan of expanding this community to actually 1.2 million hectares, which is a massive area, what they call the area inside of the Linha Negra, or the black line, which they consider like a sacred site, and it's their duty to preserve the area.
And why is it called the Black Line?
Funny, there is a few translations, and you gotta consider that we are translating like from the Arhuaco language
to Spanish,
then to English.
Right.
And so I'm not the best to tell the story, but essentially is the line which is the precursor of everything that we know in the planet. Like there's a big explanation of how the Sierra Nevada is the heart of the earth.
Of the world, right? Yeah.
And it's really beautiful to hear. It makes a lot of sense when you actually hear that. And among so many different indigenous histories and like telling of how the world actually come to be what it is, I think is one of them that makes the most sense. And when you look, Sierra Nevada itself is the highest, tallest peak in the earth with one peak, right? Like it's not like the mountain Everest, which is a chain of mountains. It's just one mountain that goes from the ocean, the center of earth, until the high skies, let's say like that. And there is the largest biodiversity area in the planet. So there is a law into this explanation of the Linha Negra.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the Mamos are the most connected people that I've met to the planet, to the earth, and to working with nature. And they do what's in Spanish called pagamentos, which translates to payments or offerings. And it was really, really beautiful because a series of events, a lot of synchronicities, meeting different people. The first time I heard about the Mamos was actually on a show on National Geographic, where this man, it wasn't even about the Mamos. It was about Colombia, and they talked about the golden animals that were created by the indigenous people because gold was so prevalent there in Colombia, because there's so much water, it's rainforest. The indigenous people would find gold just at the base of waterfalls, and then they would sculpt it into these beautiful pieces of jewelry and these relics that would represent, which I came to learn, these locations of where these animals originated from, what they believe is where they first came to be on Earth. And so the indigenous people would bury those gold relics to anchor in that energy of that particular creature, and that would anchor in this grid underneath the earth of these animals throughout the whole country and further, right? Because back then there was no countries. It just was the continent of South America, you know? And so I learned about these golden relics, and something inside me like lit up, and I was like, I think I want to learn more about this. I want to go on eBay and see if they have any, right? And I went on eBay and I found one with two frogs, one on top of the other.
Oh, wow.
And I had just recently inherited some money because my mom had just passed. And I was like, man, I want to invest into this. Like, this feels like I want to meditate with it. I want to connect with this. So I ordered it on eBay, and I got it at my house. And it's literally one little frog and one bigger frog underneath. And there's a spiral on the back of the smaller frog, and then on the base it's hollow, so it's like, it looks like gold. And I took it and I sat with it and I meditated, And I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to see what I can learn from this, right? And I start connecting to it. And the first message I got in meditation was, you have to return this. And I was like, okay, do I return it to the buyer that I just got it from? And it was like, no, you have to return it back to the lands where it came from. And I was like, okay, this is like a whole new mission to go down to Colombia to this. Like, I didn't know anything about the Mamos yet. Just I had felt this calling to this item. And so I'm like, okay, let me learn more about this, where it comes from, the origins, and the people that created this. And I looked it up online, and I found out about the Mamos. And at that time, I'd let it go. I just said, you know what, when the time comes, I'm going to meet the right people. I'm going to it's all going to align for me to return this back to where it needs to go. And I kind of let it go. And a few months later, I went down to Tulum to visit a friend, and I was at Tulum, Mexico, and I was at this place called Ical, which is like a very spiritual, conscious resort on the water. And I'm just talking to I meet this woman who's from Colombia, and she's like, I'm like, have you ever heard of the Mamos? And she's like, yeah, I actually have worked with them. They've taken me to their land. You have to be really, really, you have to know one of them in order to be invited onto their land. It's like a very big honor. And she had gone to their land, and she had spent time with them. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. So she told me a little bit about them. And at the same time, my dad went, I didn't know this, but I called my dad, and he had told me he was going on this retreat with his teachers in Pennsylvania. And he's like, I'm going with these indigenous people. I got this really strong hit. I got to go. And he tells me he's in Sedona doing work with the Mamos. And I'm like, whoa, this is really interesting, right?
So
and
connected.
Yeah, it was so connected. And so I told him, I want to go on the next trip. Wherever they go, I want to go with you guys. So with this group, I don't know, there was 10 of us. Mm-hmm. I think a year later, or maybe 8 months later, we went to Mato Tepila, which is the tree of life. In English, they call it Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And it's this giant 300-foot petrified tree stump that goes up out of nowhere into the sky. And it looks like it's been broken or cut off. And it's massive. And so we went with them there, and we did 9 of those pagamentos. And the pagamentos were fascinating because they were using frequency, because they had all of us bring instruments. Mm-hmm. They were using frequency for us to play from our heart. Didn't matter if we were in rhythm or in tune or whatever. We just would use the frequency from our heart to play these instruments. And then they would take a little piece of cotton, and that cotton would basically collect all those prayers and all that frequency, and they would bury it in the ground. Mm-hmm. And we did 9 of those ceremonies, and then I did 9 of my own with crystals around. And then they received from the land, because they go to very specific stones or trees, and those are the guardians of that land.
Yes.
And they would ask, can we proceed further? And then they would do these pagamentos and work with them. And so really, really interesting. And then once we did those 9 ceremonies, I had brought the frog with me. And I brought it to them. I said, I have this really item I want to give you to bring back to the land. And they looked at it and they said, it's fake. And I said, are you sure? Like, I paid a good amount of money for this, Like, are you really sure this is like fake? And they're like, yeah, we're sure. We've tested it. We've muscle tested. We've done all this stuff. It's not real, but you can leave it here, and we'll reverse the energy of it and align it with where it needs to, with the energies of the original ones. And so they put a special crystal into it and buried it in a special site there. And and then after that, we went to South Dakota and worked in the lands of the Lakota people. And I'm very connected with those teachings as well. But it was so beautiful because we got to go onto the prairie and see the wild buffalo, the wild bison roaming. And these guys just went right up to them, some of the Mamos, and they just like connected with these giant animals so close. And they weren't afraid or anything. So we went to two sacred sites, and they said that one of them they couldn't work there. They had to bring it back to the Sierra Nevadas in Colombia and work with it there because it's like a microcosm of the whole planet. And they said we need to bring the prayers back and work with them there. And so that was really beautiful. My dad went and worked with them again in New Jersey with the whales, but I haven't worked with them again yet. But I feel very connected with them. The most past lifetime regressions I have actually is of the tribe that lived right by the ocean. And I don't know if you've been to this place, but it's these stairs that come out of the ocean and go up into the jungle. They go for many.
No, I haven't not been, but I do believe it's Santa Marta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've seen it. I've seen it on a documentary. There's two documentaries about the Mamos. One is called Aluna on Gaia and YouTube, and the other one, if you type in the original Mamos documentary, I think it was from the 90s when the first British man went and was invited to see their land, to connect with them. They're both really fascinating, and they give you a little feel for how they work with the planet. And so, it just was, I've always felt really connected to the earth and to nature. And when I met them, I was like, wow, they're on another level because these people are working when they're chosen to be a mamo, right? They're chosen at birth. They place those young boys, because the boys are mamos and the women become sagas. And when the boys are born and they are chosen, they get put into total darkness until they become men, which is totally next level, right? Like I don't know any other culture that does that. And so they're connecting to the earth. They're connecting to, as well as to the extraterrestrials and all of the galaxy. And then I don't know if you know about this next level, but once they become a man, then they can be chosen. What I call I don't know what the official term is, but they are called, I call them super mamos, where they go up into the Sierras and live in a cave. Where they're fed very specific diet of roots and things like that, where they don't shower, they don't shave, they just live like in a very specific way where they are just, I would imagine, just like one toe in this reality. The rest is like just fully connected to spirit and to the galaxy, you know. And those mamos are the ones the mamos go to get the next mission, to go and figure out what's next for them to do to help the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's fascinating for me. I'm not the necessarily like most knowledgeable about the tradition and like the rites of passage that they do with this process. But it's definitely something that you know what you're talking about because you met some of them and you feel that energy without any other experience besides the experience that you're having with them that enhance already like all of that what you're saying. Like only if you meet one of them you're gonna really understand what you're trying to describe right now. And there is that connection. You feel the sensibility of the words, the listening that they have, the care from like where they are in the moment that they are, the now moments type of thing that we hear a lot in a buzzword, but like in a really
Embodied.
embodiment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Embodied way. Yeah, they fully embody that connection in nature 100% all the time, no matter where they are. And I noticed that it's unwavering. It's like it's them. It's a part of, like, they are nature, like fully embracing that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point, like where we are nature,
Right,
All of
right.
us, and society and like education and like, all of this like framing that has happened throughout my history of growing up and even now as a man or whatever has circumcised in certain levels or in many levels that connection, that belonging of all of us. And I think that is a really good reminder, not just with the Mamos, but every indigenous that I have met does bring that awareness, that not pretending to be nature, but like to be nature, right? Like, and I do believe that's one of the most important points that we are embracing right now in this rediscovering of like the human race, is that attachment with like grounding, with like meditating, with recycling, like small actions to big actions, but starting from us, starting from I, and really diving deep into yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting because living in a city or in a city type of environment, it's easy to forget, right? Like, because there's so much penetrating our field. 5G, you got microwaves, you got cell towers, you got so many things that were man-made that are modifying our connection. Even wearing rubber on the bottom of our shoes. You know, the Mamos, they never wear shoes. They're always barefoot. And even in the airports and things, unless they force them to put shoes on. But it's that connection all the time with the earth, and having an ongoing conversation. You know, it's like they know how to ask and to receive from Mama Gaia, from the planet, and it's really beautiful. They also, pretty much all of them, wear all white. And in Kundalini Yoga, we were taught that wearing white expands your aura by like 10, 20 feet. And, you know, it's interesting, these overlapping ideas and symbology, right? Of color and frequency and these kind of things. And when I saw that, but they honor both sides. The Mamos are very open about working with the dark and the light, and how important it is to have that balance. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. So, you've gone and worked with other tribes, right? The Huniquin?
Huniquins, Yawanawas, Ashaninkas, Cantanawas, Catuquinas, Shapibo, Dogon tribe, many other tribes. Like at Aniwa, we have about 60 elders from indigenous communities from the whole planet. And I have been in service throughout this process for more than 6 years, and really diving deeper with Aniwa, which is I'm part of the family, and I actually think everyone is part of the family. It's just a matter of understanding some of that happens, and we have this chance, right? Like being so close here in the United States to anywhere, to any airport, or even for us here in Nevada to just go to California or whatever, to have this one lifetime experience with some of like the elders. They are literally leading most of the effort starts to global regeneration or global preservation. Once like the indigenous holds about 80% of the preserved areas of any nature, like ecological point of view, right? Like you can say like a forest or a mountain or a river, etc. They hold that. They are the guardians of this earth. So that has been always like the big light that has been shining for me in that direction. And I attempt to, like you said, like don't forget as much, even when I'm in the cities or Las Vegas, New York, like to be connected with that center, which essentially is just closing the eyes and be listening to your own heart. That's nature, ultimately, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I think it's so beautiful to be able to work with different tribes that are still just living the way that is so simple and so beautiful, right? Like they're so connected to the land. They have every tribe has different medicines they work with, that they know which plants heal cancer, which plants heal, illness, sickness. They know how to make somebody well, right? They work with medicines like hape, ayahuasca. They in South America, not too much cactus, right?
Not too many cactus, like more Central America.
Yeah, yeah. And then they obviously don't have all that radiation that we were talking about with these waves that modify our frequency. And there's something so beautiful about that, right? And these people, when they come to visit, or when we go to them, we get to really experience the essence of being human, like the true grounding, the true, like, I believe in those states, right? Like when we're in, maybe it might take a day or two, right, to get fully immersed into nature. But when we're in that space, like a lot of things go away, like anxiety, stress, a lot of those things just start to naturally melt away, because your feet are on the earth. And there's so many scientific studies now where these, within seconds, milliseconds, I think, the inflammation starts to release from the body, the relaxation starts to happen, the muscles start to relax. There's just like immense amount of benefits to being barefoot. And I don't think we're supposed to be wearing these rubber soles,
We are energetic magnetic bodies, so that part of the ecosystem is always like the communication, right? Like it's part of like these habits construction that I was talking about before, because those are elements. They are in a context, and like you cannot just detach that context from the elements. We are not in physics, like we always put like this conditioning for do the problematic, right? Like from the point of view the element is not moving, or the element's in inertia, or we have the gravity at X amount, and like we do these conditions like to pretend and to arrive to these conclusions in certain levels. And I'm not talking shit about physics here, but I'm just trying to say that there is not that hypothetic view on the human body, right? Like we are here. It is a reality, being physical, like for the eyes, or physical for the biochemic, like we are here, and there is no way to disconnect from this field that we are. And that mention that you made with like being in the forest or being in like an indigenous helm, where like most of those behaviors are interconnected, intertwined with nature itself, like remind us of our belonging, and that communication is more freely happening. There is less condition. You might be barefooted while you usually use shoes in the city, in the town. You might be like more aware and listening. You might be like in a fasting or some sort of like conditions where you enhance that nature in you, that in me, like that sometimes is easily like taken for granted because we leave the house and we jump in the car and then we go into the office and then we drink a water that comes from a pipe and all of those things that disassociate us from this belonging feeling, but in reality they are always there, right? Like it doesn't matter how far you are from the concept of the water come from the earth, or the sunlight come from the sky, you are in that ecosystem. So the more we relate with more like of our body, like mimic that nature, right? Like it creates that resonance with the trees and the birds and this whole ecosystem that's alive and pulsing around us and inside of us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it'd be really interesting. So you work with a lot of these communities, right, around the planet that are conscious communities where they're very aware. A lot of them are self-sustaining or close to it, right, where they're growing their own crops, living off the land. They're reusing everything that they have. They've found all these different ways to live in a very, very attuned way with the planet, right? And so you've been working with these mushrooms, right? This mycelium of the mushrooms. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a gastrologist, graduated with the Federal University of Brazil in 2014 when I left Brazil. So food has been my passion for a long time. With 7 years old, I will say that I will have like a sandwich business or like food business in general. And at the time, like I was inserting to my family business with food. So food is a really big passion of mine. One of my biggest missions and my biggest goals is impact 1 billion people through food and habits of life. That's how comes along like 5 acts and 5 habits like that I can mention a little bit about too. But mushrooms come to me like after I was already inserting into this understanding of food as medicine. And I was treating myself through that. I discovered that and I was resembling for people around me that there was something there, right? Like my body was changing, my energy was changing. I was like really being impacted by their actions and by their habits that I was living by. I work with like some Circuit du Soleil athletes and inside of many shows in Vegas where I could study and put into test many of my theories and many of my lessons in college at the time. And formulating products and food that was really nourishing for the body. Through this process, cannabis came along really strongly, and like I gotta talk about that before I go into mushroom because it was open the door for something that's called assembling effect or entourage effect. Is essentially the conversation that we are having before, but in a really like simple way of saying is the impact of any substance which is added to any substance to the result of that. What that means is like doesn't exist in the formulation word like oh it's just for color or it's just for this flavor or it's just for texture. No, that literally deeply impact the result of what you are utilizing in your body. If you're drinking, if you're eating, doesn't matter how you're using, that will impact that. And throughout this process, I end up like doing a few formulations with cannabis products that brought me to the mushroom world. And like it was an invitation. I always say like the medicine plants or the plant medicines, they work through us, right? Like they choose us in certain moments and they start showing us like whatever we have to see internally, like for a self like development. But if you really tune in, like they are a carrier of a big message, which is the message that unity, the message of we are one, the message of like we are a fractal of this big flower of life that it is life itself. And mushrooms, more than any other medicine that I have ever experienced in the grand scheme of things in my life, has been that messenger for me. So 2018, I go to Burning Man for the first time. I meet my partner in the sand of Burning Man. We promised to do great things for the planet. One of them was spreading the love that we have through mushrooms, for mushrooms. And we create a few companies in the sector like that are working with nootropics, with like psychedelics, with the study of the mushroom for building, for producing like all types of materials. And that has been like my path since 2018, work with the mushroom in a much, much bigger scale than we are talking right now in the mainstream, but super happy that is a talk now in the mainstream mushrooms, because we have used mushrooms for centuries, and we have like had passage of mushrooms in the Egyptians pyramids in Egypt, you know, like in all the others, like around the globe, we have like found like fossils of mushrooms as well, like proof of like the consume of mushrooms, a big theory about the monkeys eating the mushrooms and all of this. And mushrooms has this big like controversial like capacity right now that's arriving with scientific proof. And that, for what we call medicine or plant medicine, is a big impactful proof of what we know about the plants has not even arrived into like a small percentage that makes a dent into the capacity that we have to explore into ourselves, and how much the mushrooms actually are in a broad spectrum of society. We are talking about a mycelium network that's grounded in every single place. Every single plant communicates from the mycelium. When you plant a mushroom, which is called inoculation, you react into 12 to 60 miles range from that point that you put the mushroom in the ground.
Wow.
So you're creating an ecosystem that provides like and communicates and have like an autonomous way of being, thinking, that produces much more for the environment. So mushrooms are really fascinating for me and has so many facets. And of course, the plant medicine path is one that came to me for my own benefit, right? Like to understand myself, to really tapping into colors and creativity, and really understanding more communication, like what is out there, what is in here, like it is the same thing. Are we vibrating the same way? Why, when we have a mushroom experience in a psychedelic trip, you have more sensibility? Why you are more aware? Why hunters in the past utilize mushroom to enhance their capabilities to survive in the jungle? And why shamans until this day serve mushrooms to enhance like some cognitive aspect that is in a dark place in your mind, and to explore yourself, to then arrive to a point that you are who you are, right? The raw Pablo, who am I? Like, and of course, it's a lifetime discovery. It's not a one and done type of thing. I think we are in this life to learn, really. And mushrooms definitely is this path for me, where it's like educational, is ludic, is creativity, is like joyful, but it's also a big medicine for many of the big problems we have in mental health right now, in immuno health right now. So it's definitely a passion.
Yeah, for sure. I know that you also work with the mushrooms to regenerate soil. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Like I believe we have aspects of nature that are really problematic nowadays. And a few years back, I was hearing this guy called Zach Bush. I don't know if you know him, but it's a big name, scientific authority, né? in many topics, one of them being like the health of the planet. And he is one of the main names and one of the biggest names that talk about a little bit of what are these aspects of like nature that we can interfere and make the most effect right away, and also what are the most problematic aspects of nature that we get to interfere right now, because there is no time to waste, and soil is one of the main ones.
Yeah, big time.
So in the soil aspect, like I start understanding a little bit of production of food as a gastrologist, as a chef, always being the relationship with where I get my food from. It's really easier to make an amazing dish if you have amazing ingredients. You don't even have to work too much with a really good tomato, a really nice like parsley, like good salt, olive oil, like boom, you have like amazing salad of tomato. That's it. And you don't need to do much more. But the chefs are more in relationship with that now than ever, because it's become more in scarcity. You cannot really find good ingredients. Even like in some of the countries that I have visited, like you don't have access to organic foods, which is really crazy to understand like how food production has impacted the degradation of the soil. And that's the point that we are right now, where the soil nutrition is so low because we have been degrading that for so many generations that we need to impact soil in a big way. It's something that is not just necessary, but it's fundamental for our existence in Earth. Like the depletion of the soil in the South Hemisphere has gone up to 60% in the past years. And in the North Hemisphere has gone up to 80% in the past years. And we are talking about a really short amount of time. I'm not talking about like 100 years or 300 years. It's more like 20 years. It's more like 50 years, you know,
Right.
like there is different numbers in different studies. But when you look at the degradation of the soil, you clearly see that there is something really wrong happening. And that is translating to our health. Like we not having the minerals and the vitamins that we have to have from the food. Minerals are the only component in the food that's called essential minerals, and we are not having that. There is a really high number of deficiency of minerals worldwide. We are talking about 99% of the people deficient on magnesium.
99?
99% of the population worldwide is deficient in magnesium. Over 90% of the population, about 92% of the population is deficient in multiple minerals. So this is a result of the soil degradation that we have nowadays. And the mushroom is such an important piece of the resolution, or part of the solution for that. Because as I said before, the mushroom, when you put in the ground and you inoculate the ground, is interconnecting the environment. So with that interconnectivity, like you create more nourishment of that. You understand where you have more water and less water. You understand where like there is more micro life and more biological life, where there is chemical influence, and how that equilibrium can happen in a forest or in a desert. And there is like finds of mushrooms in so many different places. So mushroom is not just a resource for many things, as I said, of production, but also as a medicine, but also as a fertilizer for the soil itself.
So have you heard of the Korean technique that where they're finding using this mycelium brings back the soil very quickly? And the mycelium that you're working with, is it incorporating specific types of mushrooms, and how does it work? Are they just mixing the mycelium in with the soil, or what's actually happening when they're starting to bring the soil back to life?
Yeah, there is many different ways of utilizing the mushroom itself. Like you can like just use the spores and like be inoculating an area. You can be actually producing mushrooms. You can utilize the mushroom like body as part of like the fertilizer for the sand or the land that you are using to enrich the soil that you are growing on. Or you can even produce mushrooms in a separate location, which a lot of the mushroom growers nowadays are understanding doing that, and all of the soil, all of that like grain that you are using to produce the mushroom has the mycelium into it, and that's so rich for the soil. So you create like a biofertilizer, utilize that trash for some people to produce like your fertilizer, and just like algae or humic acid or fulvic acid, you are enriching the soil itself. So I like to go all across the board. I really like to produce mushroom in concomitant, like in the same harmony with like other produce, so it enriches like the environment. I utilize to mix in the soil as well, and I also produce mushroom in a lab and utilize the grain that I'm using for the mushroom production to come back to the soil and create like almost like a biofertilizer factory in some of the growers.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. So how quickly have you seen the soil regenerate, or what are the effects, and how effective is it?
I don't use just the mushroom. It's super fast. It's super fast because the mineralization is also a big aspect of how to do that. But we have seen like in a cycle of 10 days, 5 days, like already a big difference in like grass, for example, which is like burn and not growing, and a lot of pockets in between. Like you see the grass just stabilizing, be flush and green, really luxurious. Like plants, you have like enhancing like nutrition factors. Like we haven't dived into the really testing of like the before and after, besides the eye, right, the picture and the image and all of this, because all of that require like a big investment right now for scientific proof, so we can start doing things like that. But grassroots studies are being more normalizing. Unfortunately, like we have like a lobby in all kinds of business, which has to be really looking to not being utilize their resources to do another one's research, and things are like that are happening still. Unfortunately, like we have that barrier of entry, but the good news is that it is unavoidable. It's something that is happening for the medicine purpose, but also is happening because it's more efficient, it's more affordable, and that tends to be like a decision of the market to move forward. So I'm really excited to see some research coming to food cultivation regards mushroom fertilization for sure.
Okay. Yeah, amazing, man. So, I mean, while we're on the topic of minerals and nutrients, right, I've found from my own experimentation, right, in order to because right now, you need to eat 9 oranges to get the same amount as 1 orange like 20 years ago. And so most people aren't doing that, right? So a lot of people are turning to supplements in order to subsidize these other minerals that they're missing from the soil that aren't present, right? So I've found the two that kind of cover so many of the essentials are Shilajit and sea moss. And sea moss obviously grows in the ocean, so you get a lot of the salts and a lot of the minerals from the ocean in that when you take that. And a lot of times they come in either capsules or gels, like a jelly, almost like a jam, right? Like you eat a spoonful of it a day. Or Shilajit, which is a type of resin that comes from high up in the mountains, I think above 10,000 feet. They found it in the Himalayas, in the Ural Mountains in Russia. They found it even in the Colorado Mountains. And so those two seem to cover the majority of the nutrients. I think Shilajit covers like 107.
85 plus minerals. Like we have like database on 85 plus minerals right now on Shilajit. Yes.
And what about sea moss? Do you know how many that
About
covers?
the same thing.
Same thing.
It's like 82, 90 minerals, like the different compositions, because the mineral of the Shilajit is an ionic mineral, and in the CMOS is not ionic. So the bioavailability is a little bit different, and also the digestion is a little bit different. It's much easier to digest the Shilajit than it is the CMOS itself. So you have more bioavailability from the Shilajit. But both are, for sure, for me, the top two mineral sources that I use myself as well.
And then one thing I want to discuss with you is a fruit that grows in Brazil, your native country, which is called camu camu. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes. Camu camu, or there's a scientific name for camu camu as well that I don't remember right now. But camu camu is historically 6 times more concentrated in vitamin C than what is orange, which is about 52
in one orange.
In one orange, like the same amount to be equivalent to 6 times the amount of vitamin C than it is in the orange or in the lemon, for example. The lemon and the orange are really similar. There's a 0.3 difference in between them, and the camu camu is about 6 times like that concentration, but also is about bioavailability and access. And that's something that a lot of people, when is buying supplements and have like healthier choices, is something that is important to be aware, right? Like is the example of the calcium on the milk. And a lot of people talks about like have more calcium, and like of course you drink more milk, and like you eat cheese, etc. But like, who told you that calcium is actually going to where you need to be?
Right.
If you need like a tibia that's like in a process of osteoporosis or something, who told you that the calcium is going there? And that's part of the assembling effect concept, which is how your body is actually assimilating, absorbing that. So as important as the concentration in something is like the combination that you take in that, because the curcumin by itself, like it doesn't does much effect. It's really good. It's really healthy for us to utilize turmeric in our daily life.
Right.
But the curcumin, which is in turmeric, is only available in the exponentialization that has to be effective the way it is with pepper. And
pepper and warming it up, right?
Yes.
Like it needs a certain temperature. So in Kundalini Yoga, I was taught to make golden milk, which is, you can use almond or coconut milk and then mix the turmeric, and then you need black pepper in order for all of the positive elements and minerals to get activated and to be able to be readily absorbed by the body.
It's
right?
really to activate, it's really to activate, especially because the pepperin is an enzyme that protects and like almost wrap the curcumin to go through the digestive system. And when I arrive like in the last portion, I actually release the curcumin and the effect it happens. Like it's about 1,000 times more effective with the pepperin than without. And that is just like some of the science that we know nowadays. And so many others are out there, right? Like rice and beans are a perfect example as well. And vitamin C with magnesium. And there is so many combinations that we are just in the really starting point of understanding, because we have been like specialized and isolating so much in this decade and maybe in this century that we lost a little bit track of what is the integrity of these whole foods to be really utilized by our body. And that's really important, right? Like, so just to circle back into it, definitely camu camu is amazing. Like it grows a lot in the Amazon, like a lot in Peru actually has been a big extraction of that resource on the Amazon. So you had literally major bosques or forests or like fields of camu camu devastated by the big pharma, like which extracted so much. And the good and the bad, right?
To take the fruit, and then they killed the trees.
They killed the trees accidentally, like in the process, and like broke a good part of the production. So in this process of like restoration, like the indigenous people has had like a big portion of like the camu camu production that we see nowadays, especially because the preserve areas has been like pushing more into these indigenous areas because all of the outside areas has been explored and extracted from the resources. But hopefully we still have like a good amount of camu camu to utilize in the medicine, which is mostly where it's utilized. It's super bitter acid, like, so you don't see like people utilizing as a fresh fruit or a juice, but it comes in powder or in formulations, and it's definitely like a really super power source of vitamin C and antioxidants.
What other supplements do you take, or do you know that people take? I know, there's different blends of mushrooms, right? Mm-hmm. I know you have a company with a blend of mushrooms. Then we have the Shilajit, the sea moss, camu camu. Mm-hmm. What other like natural minerals and supplements have you worked with, and that you really recommend for people?
I think supplements are kind of water in my day, and I don't drink water the entire day, and I try to drink as much water as I can and like the minimum amount and stuff like that. So I have been really tuning into my body, understanding like that ultimately Fractal Forest actually has a shout out for a good company in the space that's doing a great work.
They're called Fractal Forest.
Fractal Forest, like they have a Shilajit actually, and they say something in the commercial that's really funny. That's like, we in Fractal Forest, like we believe that you don't have to take our products forever. And because you are tuning into that vibration and you arrive to a certain level that your body is automatically like mimicking that effect and like is propagating that effect, is almost like the utilization of like a plant medicine. You don't want to like wake up and take ayahuasca every day. Like,
right.
There is a big reverence and like tuning vibrational with the plant to you and the you to the plant. And that's like the supplements and the foods. And I really believe in having my apothecary, like my medicine box in my house, where is a ritual way of like something. I don't really get sick. I kind of share that with you. Like, it has been now since arriving in US 9 years that I don't really have like anything under like go to the bed and stay 3 days, 4 days a week and sneezing nose and allergies, and like I don't really have that. I don't really know how my life would be, because I remember back in the days when I was growing up and I had all of that, like the sore throat thing, the thing on the lips, like
mouth sores,
the mouth sores, and all crazy stuff, like. And there was a normality in life, and I understood that, okay, this is not a normality. That's actually an exception. And if I do my part, like, can be actually a real rare case where like I have anything. Now that I still have like something coming in my throat, and I have a itchy throat, I'm like, something's coming. So let me go for a camu camu supplement. Let me double down in a vitamin C, in a zinc. Let me go for turkey tail or like things that are accessible and they are really nourishing. In my daily life, I try to take as much as possible mushrooms. So I have a blend of mushrooms.
Non-psychedelic mushrooms.
Non-psychedelic mushrooms and psychedelic mushrooms.
Like microdose of psychedelic, right?
Yeah, because it's interesting. Like we have about 1,000 cells of mushrooms fungi in our body, in our bloodstream.
1,000?
That has been cataloged already. And those
1,000 different kinds.
Different strains, of phenotypes that the Paul Stamets like to call. And those phenotypes are like not being nourished. Like if you think about it, like most people doesn't have mushroom access or has some sort of like mycophobia. And there is so many different names to say to that, and some beliefs, but the mushrooms are in our body already, right? Like there's a big line of thought that they say that the earth was created and that earth, that biologically, environmental, like it started like to evolve through the fungi that was eating the mineral and sedimenting organic material in the drop of the oceans, and that create the oxygen, and then life happens. So if you really think that, or if you think about the monkeys eating the mushroom and evolving all of this, like you start doing associations where like you understand that just like vitamin C or magnesium or phosphorus or whatever it is, there is a potential of like feeding that mushroom in our bodies. The feeding our fungi cells in our bodies will get us to a different point. And that's what mushroom medicine is happening right now. We understand that cordyceps will enhance our energy. The lion's mane will enhance your mental clarity.
Oh, yeah.
The turkey tail will enhance your immune system. And things like that to have access in your medicine box is part of your daily life. You start to normalize being a higher level of like vibration, but also in a high level of like biological resistance, right? Your body is this microbiome like that some people in the medicine studies like call the intestine like your first brain.
Oh, yeah.
And then you actually develop the heart, and then you have your intestine, and then you have your brain development. And this is really important to understand, because once you have like more neurotransmitters in your intestine than you have in your brain, like there is identity of your body that comes through what you eat. And Hippocrates will say like make the food your medicine. So those supplements for me are part of my diet, which in Latin diet, for who doesn't know, you know what is diet? It stands for the etymology of the word.
No.
The diet means like the lifestyle or way of life. Like, so it's not about like something restricted, right? Like some people will like correlated the diet into like, oh, you're doing diet? Oh my God, like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna eat this candy in front of you. Like, there is nothing to do with that. You can eat everything, anything you wanna, but it's like, what is your normality? What is the basis? What is your foundation? And that's what I think is the most important. But just to answer your question more directly, like mushrooms is definitely a big portion of my life right now. Shilajit with Lajit Gold, like it is this amazing Shilajit that we source from the Himalayas. We work in Nepal, like we work direct with the Sherpas. We are not like putting some sort of like distribution without knowing what is happening down there. We work direct with the Indigenous. And this type of work is really important when you talk about like the food that you put in your body, the supplement that you put in your body, because there is really so much garbage out there. You know, like it's heartbreaking for me to get in a grocery store and have to read labels over labels over labels to know if I am poisoning myself. And that's what comes down to it. You either eating health or you're eating poison. Right. There's not a middle term anymore.
Yeah, and that's a really great company, Lajit, Lajit, Shilajit, and we both work with them. So it's a really great company. Highly recommend that for Shilajit for anybody listening. And yeah, so I think that's a great thing, right? Like the mushrooms, the different supplements. There's so much to talk about with that stuff, but I want to maybe change the topic a little bit and dive into like your spiritual journey a little bit and talk about your daily practice. I know you do a lot of yoga, you meditate. Can you talk a little bit about how that started in Brazil, right?
Yeah, in reality, like yoga didn't come to my life until I came to US. I had always like a past of like sports and be really connected with like an active like lifestyle. But I didn't had much awareness of like meditation and yoga practice and like really stay in a practice on a reverence with a spiritual connection besides Catholic Church. I grew up as a Catholic with my mom, and I did like some of the process. My family is still really attached to the Catholic Church itself. But I come from a place that's called Salvador, Bahia. It's the east coast, northeast of Brazil, and is the first capital of Brazil.
Oh, beautiful.
Is also the largest amount of like Afro-descendant of like black people. However, I don't know the political terms sometimes outside of Africa. And there is a big influence of the colonial, like European, with Portuguese, Germans, like Spanish, Italians coming through. So we have like the biggest concentration of churches outside of the Vatican.
Oh, wow.
And it's really amazing in the sense of like there is that education that there is no right or wrong. Of course, there is some of battles or disagreements in between religions and stuff. But like for the average citizen in the town, like you just expose for all of these beliefs and the saints and the gods and the entities, and that has been my spiritual like knowledge until I left Brazil and came to United States. I got introduced more vivid to a health lifestyle, as I said as well. I changed my routine. I changed my habits of eating, and with that was resignifying like what was important for me, what was the basics. I was a nomad at the time, and I still feel I am this nomad inside of me. I'm a global citizen, and in that process, I was in the United States for 5 months, 6 months, and I was going to Europe. I was being hired by one of the biggest like French chefs in France at the time, Joël Robuchon, and I started like understanding like that things that I was doing wasn't correctly for me. Like I wasn't feeling the greatest of myself every day. I was like seeing my face swallow and some inflammation happening and some fatigue if I was doing some sport, and I was overweight and I was drinking every day. So things were happening in that direction until I hit like a point that I want to see the difference. I want to really feel better. I want to impact more my own life. And then I started like rebuilding like some of like these mechanisms or these habits and hacking a little bit of my daily life. And I understood that the optimal day for me was a day that I had time in the morning to myself, that I could wake up and I could have a deep breath, that I could silence like everything else and just be inside of my mind, or sometimes look into an object, but like in reverence and present to that moment with my breath. And that was the starting of like the breath work journey, and also attached with that the yoga practice, which I didn't had any understanding. And my first yoga class was a Kundalini yoga.
Oh, really?
And I went super
Wow,
deep
that's amazing.
into breath at the time, like, and it started like just having so much joy every day to wake up. And if you are in a really good studio or in a good teaching, like you're gonna get your first practice with like the sun comes up and like this whole thing. So that definitely like changed my life. I had like recently become a father at the time, so was potentialized by that as well. So there is definitely like the before and after become a father and understand how valuable my time was. I'm grateful that before I become a father, I was already tapping into this best self, and really evoking like these rights of like practicing and having my own time, and like extending a little bit of my morning to not touch the cell phone, to not be in relationship with problems or like anything which doesn't belong to that day, that moment. And I think that was the best thing that I did in my spiritual journey, because allow me to answer like questions and like a deep desire of like what is in here for me. And of course, I'm a super entrepreneur and super vivid, passionate person, but at the same time, I like to be in a little bubble in a way, you know, like where you can be in a tree, be in a mountain, be in the ocean, or be in your own house, in my own house, my own room, in a space where there is calmness. And it's not calmness where like shh, everybody doesn't talk anywhere. Like it's just in the sense of like I have a right of belonging to this space without being bothered or interfered by anyone. And that was a big awakening for me because it was like, wow, like that really changed my life. Like that really impacted my day, my mood, my energy, my sleep. And it was that moment that I was eating better, there was taking better decisions, there was working out, there was like climbing, there was doing sports again, but also was like being reverence to that self-love, to that self-discipline. And that was my start journey like around 2015 into 2016, which got my first yoga class.
Wow. Do you remember your first Kundalini yoga class?
I don't remember necessarily the first. I mean, I remember many things of the first one, but I remember more the time. Right, I got gifted like for my birthday like a 1 month like in this studio with like a really good teacher that actually has a lot of myths around him that got expelled from his country of origin because of his teachings and caused me. And he comes to Las Vegas and create this first studio of Kundalini Yoga in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And that was like really afterwards story. I didn't know any of this. I just had this like, wow, I need to do that. Like I want to do that. And once I started doing, especially because I had that experience the year before, I was like, that's exactly what I needed to tap into that energy better and like learn for someone that has so much more experience. And definitely what I remember from my first yoga class was like how someone can breathe so fast during so much time. Like that's impossible. That is never.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's amazing that Kundalini yoga was the first yoga that you found, because for me, I looked for several years. Like, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but like I tried Vinyasa yoga, I tried Hatha yoga, I tried Ashtanga yoga, I tried like 4 or 5 different types of yoga, right? And then I was in the middle of Pennsylvania, up in the mountains of the Poconos, and I meet this girl on Tinder, and she's like, have you tried Kundalini yoga? And I'm like, I've never even heard about it. She's like, there's this tiny little studio in Scranton, Pennsylvania. You got to go check it out. And there was all these things that happened all at once where I had my Kundalini rise up. And then I think the next day I went to the Kundalini yoga class, and then I found out what a twin flame was that same day too. And it was like this huge awakening for me. And when I went to the Kundalini yoga class, my third eye like blasted open. During the meditation, I started seeing past lifetimes, which I couldn't understand in the moment, but like I started seeing all these visions of me, what felt like me, but in other bodies, and having these other experiences in Egypt and France and all these places, right? And it just like, there was a part of me, like of my soul, that was like, nope, that's not the one. That's not the type of yoga you're looking for. Keep going, keep looking. And then when I found it, I was like, this is it. This is what I was looking for. And then not only that, I was like, I need to teach this. Like the world needs to learn this, you know? It was like so powerful. And I have 2 other episodes about Kundalini yoga where I talk with other Kundalini yoga teachers. One is with Nicholas and one is with Yogi Amanbir. And both of those dive into different avenues of Kundalini yoga, but it's just so interesting because it's completely different than other types of yoga, right? Like I know you've tried many different types of yoga, right?
Yes.
So how would you describe it, and how, for those that have never heard of it and maybe this is their first podcast they're finding, right? Like how would you describe Kundalini yoga, and what would you say is different about it?
Yeah, for me, in the Kundalini, the awareness of the breath is like not now that doesn't exist. I think yoga goes through the breath, right? Like in every single modality. But in the Kundalini, there is almost like this bigger awareness where like another type of yoga where you bring breath as an element of the context, and in the Kundalini like is almost this is the technique that you gotta learn. Like everything else is like secondary, third. Like is the breath is what is the yoga itself.
Like crucial to the practice.
To the practice, yes. I think that was the biggest thing for me, and of course, like as every yoga, in a way, like the discomfort, like the going through the discomfort to find the pleasure in the practice, it was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, and I think that the Kundalini Yoga also has a meditation built into every class, so that's another big difference. And it's also known as the yoga of awareness. So it's meant to stimulate the body, activate the nervous system, like make you feel some sort of stress, right? And then you have that time to chill and center and ground and just have just like life, right? Like sometimes we have these really intense moments in the day or in our life, and then we have to learn to regulate ourselves to come back to our center, come back to that grounding, to that heart space. And so Kundalini is like a little microcosm of our everyday world, and a lot of different practices, right? Like sweat lodge is another way of doing that, right? Like going into a Native American sweat lodge, you can you're hit with all this heat, right? And when you're done, it's like this full surrender, this full release of like, like the breath, and also like this gratitude for life and for water and for food. Like there's this deep appreciation that arrives with these types of practices. Same with the opposite, cold plunge, right? Like you go into the cold plunge and you sit in it, and you learn to center yourself and to work through that struggle and that frustration of like, oh man, this is so intense for me, especially the first couple of times, and then learning that anything is possible. Like we're really limitless in this body. And I know with men's work, we've done a lot of these practices together. We do Kundalini yoga, the ice plunge, we do the sweat lodge, we do all kinds of different things. And so it's really meant to prepare us for life. These types of practices.
And I think one of the biggest things is like of preparation for life, and like being in life is that presence, like be in the present moment, like be in your body, be comfortable, be uncomfortable in being comfortable or being uncomfortable.
right.
It's like really coming back to that, like you are the most important thing. And if you don't take care of yourself, nobody will. And even if they do, they cannot take the choice for yourself. And like that autonomy, that authority that comes with the practice of like the Kundalini or the cold plunge or the Temescal or whatever practice that bring you some sort of like stress, but it's not the stress of like going through a marathon and run all of this. Is more the stress of like finding yourself in a position where like you're not usually doing, because you're not getting to that level of intensity that you are putting there, because it's the only way to really focus your presence, to really focus your attention to that one thing. And of course, there is always a multitude of things that are happening at the same time. But coming back to that breath, which is the first action that we do when we're born, the 30 seconds gap in between the birth and the first breath, and the recognition as a human being through others that are there to receive you, or even your own mother if she's only person in the room, like that action will define yourself for the rest of your life. And the more we tap into that action, the habit will enhance. And that's a lot of what I believe of this practice is like going in the deep dive on this like first action. And as a first action, how to get better, right? Like how to write better, how to think better, how to create music better, but how to breathe better. And that awareness brings me like to a really state of like, it's good to be me, it's good to be here, it's
like
good
in the body.
in the body. And sometimes out of the body too, when you go in these astral like projections, like yeah, but having the deep awareness of your receptacle, like where your soul resides, or like, and have that like a branch of a tree that's reaching for the sunlight and like is through that process growing and looking for resources, etc. But like just in that essence of being yourself and not pretend, not dressing a certain way or not speaking a certain way, just breathing.
Just because a lot of those things are for attention, you know, or for more ego, to feed the ego more. And this is the opposite of that, you know.
Exactly.
It's the opposite of ego. It's like working on the self, and there's deep work that comes
Deep
with these practices, right? And for Kundalini Yoga, it was a 9-month training, so it's the same as the amount of time it takes to birth a child. And you know, through those 9 months, we were given these. They're called kriyas, which are like yoga sets to work on specific parts of ourself. And the majority of it was going inside to clear out the baggage, the energetic trash that we're still carrying around, like old belief patterns, old ways of thinking, limiting beliefs, right? Like ways that we were holding ourselves back from really stepping into our power, stepping into our purpose, stepping into what we're really here to do as individuals and as a collective. And in men's work, we call it edge work, right? Like where we look at that edge of, if we jumped over that edge, it would be too much. If we did less than the edge, it wouldn't be enough. But that edge, we're like walking right on that edge of like, okay, what is it that I need to be doing, that I know I want to be doing for my self-growth, or for my my purpose, or for my development, right? But I'm maybe not doing enough, or I'm getting burnt out, which is the other end of it, right? Like I'm doing too much. And that edge is like walking that fine line of like, I'm challenging myself just enough where each individual knows what it is for them, right? Like it's very individualistic in that regard, where it's like I can walk this edge, but any more than that would be too much, and any less than that wouldn't be enough. So it's like whatever that is, that's the edge work. And it can look different for every person because everybody has different goals and different things they want to create and work on in themselves and in their life, and everybody has different motivation too. So but that edge work has been so powerful for me personally, because you know, being in a men's container, and during COVID I was going to 4 men's circles a week, you know. Wow. and for like 2 years, and so it really amplified it for me, where I was like, okay, what am I working on this week? Like, what do I want to be highlighting in my life? What do I want to be creating? How do I want to, you know, and then there was these different degrees, right? Of like what fueled me, what excited me, what brought me my highest excitement, right? Like there was creativity, what I wanted to create, And that can look so different. It doesn't have to be art. It can be a podcast like this. It can be a website. It can be an Instagram post. You can create anything, right? It's not limited to anything. And then there was like, what do I want to do for income that is aligned with my beliefs and my morals, right? And also that makes me excited and makes me want to wake up and go and do that thing, you know? And then there was these different layers, right? Like, how do I want to give back to the community? How do I want to connect with my family and friends? And then like, you know, where was finding that balance? And for me, that balance is continuously growing and evolving, you know, because I know you have 3 kids, and I give you so many bows and props, because you have all these businesses that you run, and then you have 3 kids, and you're also very involved in the community, and you do a lot to give back to people and working with the tribes and things like that. So can you give people some advice or some ways that like the things that really help you or that work the best for you?
In what sense?
That keep you balanced, that keep you from getting burnt out, or that, you know, those kind of things.
I think it comes down to a lot of what we were talking before. Part of this process was understanding like what was the. I did many self-development classes and workshops, and had many teachers and mentors, etc. That's definitely helped a lot.
Yeah,
because it's the best investment that we can do in ourselves. Like, and is immaterial. You cannot understand like what is the repercussion, the ripples that a small pebble or a big pebble of some extent, like when you have these interventions, will happen in your life. And one of the biggest learning of this process was like dividing my time, like almost like what you're saying, reflecting back, like how I want to monetize, how I want to live my life, what I want to wake up every day for. And these thoughts and these questions, these answers are really fundamental, but comes after a thing which comes really back to the yoga practice and the cold plunge and all of this, which is the presence. And the gratitude feeling that I have when I am in presence is what motivates me, is what creates the balance of myself to really answer a question that, am I in the right path right now? Mm-hmm. Am I doing the right decision? Am I aligned with myself deep enough to move forward? Mm-hmm. No matter what, mm-hmm. Do whatever it takes. What will make you do whatever it takes? Is a question that's a self question, but is a question that comes down to this global humanitarian like representation and duty. And we all have like such a fundamental part of whatever we want to see. Like Tony Robbins says that life happens to you, not for you.
Right.
I say life happens from you, not to you or for you. Because really comes from this mindset of your heart is pulsing the vibration that it is resonating around yourself. And if your heart is like really beating into the same music, like you dance with life.
It becomes magnetic.
It becomes magnetic, which it is magnetic. Want you or not, it's like this. You don't have to think about to make your heart pulsing. So your heart is pulsing, but try to think about something terrifying and see if your heart doesn't respond.
Right, right.
Try to think something super calm and like super pleasant and like the chillest music and vibration, sound healing. If your heart doesn't pulse, like a little bit calmer. Mm-hmm. And that's the control that we have with our thoughts when we are in presence. And that presence is not just a spiritual bullshit like word, and it's really a thing that's intangible in a way, but it's also like really true, like the air that we breathe. We know that there is these moments that you don't see your father for a long time, and you see him sometimes before he says something stupid, like you are deep into whatever he is telling you, or that moment of seeing him, a mom that don't see a son that went to the army for however long, the first moment of like a child born, and like you really like have been in relationship with this belly for 9 months, and now like there is this person in front of you that like is talking for the first time, is breathing for the first time, is blinking the eye for the first time, is crying for the first time, and you have entire devotion of that moment. And that can happen in so many levels with all this practice that we mentioned. And I think that was my anchor throughout this whole process, and it still is. Like, I have bad and good days like everyone else, and the bad days are just a reminder of like, go a little bit deeper in yourself, stop it for a little bit longer today, like breathe a little bit more, and allow myself to fill it up my cup to a point that I can pour, not because I have the necessity of pouring, but because pouring is part of life. I heard that the other day, and like there is this interesting dynamics. I don't know if you got too much into it, but it's the give and get, right? Like, it's the what are you giving and what are you getting, right? Like, and there is that every day in life with every single relationship, like platonic or not, there is the give and get. And we, different than what I believed before, at least, like we receive, we get so much more. It's disproportional than what we give. Even you believe you are a super giver. If you are like the Mother Teresa, the Gandhi of your community, you definitely receive so much more than what you get, you give back. And that's not to say like you accumulate everything and like give like a little bit of your time. It's not that. It's really to understand that I am waking up, and that's like a big receiving already, like this ability to wake up and be in my body and breathing, like giving time to nothing else but my mind to process whatever my mind want to process that moment, the breath that I want to do in that moment, and like really incentivize with exercise like some aspects of that gratitude feeling, because that gratitude is what fills my cup the most.
I think that's huge. I think gratitude is one of the main things that I wasn't doing when I was feeling really low at one point in my life, you know, where
it's hard to be grateful when you think you have all the reasons to not be grateful.
Well, yeah, because society teaches you have to have the nice car, you have to have the house, you have to have the family, you have to have so many things in order to be to get to happiness, right?
Yeah.
And all these things that all these beliefs that I've removed have been about just loving where I'm at now. And by doing that, I actually get way more in my life, because every day, every night, and every morning, I find time to find gratitude. And to the other day, I loved what your wife said. She said, "More, please." Right? Like there's infinite abundance for each one of us, and it's there in every second. And each one of us gets to choose, are we going to tap into that or not? And abundance does not mean money. Abundance means love. Abundance means friendships. Abundance means like family, and family doesn't have to be blood, right? Like I'm there's so many people that I consider family that aren't my blood family, you know. Abundance can mean like just having a place to go in nature close by that you can sit. Abundance can be an abundance of these herbs and supplements that are medicine, like abundance is infinite, right? And so just like tapping into that, and then that deep gratitude, like even if you got $1 that day, and just like so much gratitude for that, like thank you, creator, like I asked for this $1, thank you so much for bringing me this $1, because that $1 for someone can be the same as $1 million for somebody else, right? There is no, like a billionaire, to them $1 million is like $1, like they can let go of that just as easily as they picked it up, and it wouldn't put a dent in their bank account, I guess is what I'm saying with that.
We get these conditions of like you need to have something to be grateful for,
right?
And there is a truth there, but it's not the total truth. Like I am grateful to be in I presence. I think that awareness, that is a reminder every day, is a choice. Like you said, like happiness is not really the destination. Happiness is a choice. You choose to be happy with what you are, where you are, with what you have. And with what you have is exactly what you said. It's not the belonging of like, I have this car, this money, this wallet, this clothes. Is what you have in the sense of like what you get to be. And understand that the path you are and I am where I was planning to be 5 years ago. And 5 years from now, I will be where I am walking towards to. And that decision, that understanding that is life in your own terms, because it happens from you, not to you or for you, it is a change of perspective that shaking my world, and still shaking every time when I see myself in a position that I'm not somehow super grateful for what I have. And another point that I think is so fundamental that you use really beautifully is like, thank you for this meal, right? Bless your food, bless your water, bless your life, bless your heart, bless your mind, bless your friends, bless your family. Be grateful if you have your mom by you, if you have your father by you, if you have your brother, your sister. Don't go to bed with a fight, because in the next day, that energy perpetuates, and like everything that you think, everything that you say becomes a reality in some extent. And you can believe in the theory of chords or in the theory of the multiplanetary like dimensions, etc., or not. In this planet, if you get Masaru Emoto study, and if you look a water or a plant that has received I love you, I hate you, if you look at a water that has be on top of the flower of life and like imprinted that on them, like we know already by fact that we imprint in the material, in the physical world, what we think, what we feel, what we like emanate, what is the vibration that we putting forward. So the gratitude doesn't come from the outside, the depression comes from the outside.
Right. Yeah, because it's all a societal stress, a societal program, a lot of it, not all of it for some people, but also it's like no matter what you have, like you always have your breath to be grateful for. You always have the sun to be grateful for. You always have the earth to be grateful for, the ability to communicate, to see, to hear. There's always something you can find that you're grateful for, no matter how little you have, no matter how much you've given up. And then I think a really important part of this is also mentioning service. And like you said, like receiving is always more than we're giving, but also in the giving, I've found I get way more by giving than by receiving. Like I get so much more by giving a gift than from receiving a gift. I get so much more by sharing something from the heart than it's I think that aspect of seva, right? The Hindu word seva, which is selfless service, right? Like tuning into that, right? Like, am I doing this to get an Instagram video out there? No, that's not coming from selfless service. You're wanting something from it. Mm-hmm. You want to record that video of yourself giving some money to somebody on the street or whatever. Like that's an egoic perspective, right? But selfless service is like I ask myself in the morning, what can I do to be of service today? Mm-hmm. Right? Like that could be just holding space for my dad or for my girlfriend or for my friend, you know, like that could be my service for the day, you know, or it could be way more than that, right? It could be hundreds of people coming together to give back to the homeless without any desire for any recognition, right? Like they're just doing it because they want to do it and because it feels good to give back, you know, and or even then, like tuning into like, am I doing this because I have a belief that the universe is going to give me more for doing a good deed, right? But it's like honing that back to the center, to the heart, and being like, okay, where is this coming from? Like, what is the intention, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is about intention. And I've found when I worked on ways to stop acquiring so much in terms of like for myself, and because there's two paths to enlightenment. There's the path of self-service, which is a much more difficult path. And then there's selfless service, which is service to others. And I've found that the selfless service is a much quicker path, and it aligns us with those experiences, those moments, those teachers that you mentioned that really come in those really elaborate moments that our soul has chosen for us, is how I believe, mm-hmm. right? Is that our soul chose those teachers to come in those moments to align us with a certain path and to guide us to continue to go down that road.
Absolutely, like the synchronicities,
right?
I feel like is when these moments that I had so many different synchronicities in my life, like. And I didn't understood how to call them, or didn't had a name before. I didn't know the word synchronicity, and a few things will come to me in a really interesting way. There was one time that I had to speak with someone, and that person was part of a group, and I didn't have the number of this person, and then I call it another number to talk with this person, thinking that was his number, and he was with the person that I called. Oh, wow. And that was like one of the first like that I can record, like, but there's so many others, and that moments of synchronicity is most often noticed by me when I am in that state of gratitude, mm-hmm. when I'm in that state of like selfless service, and I'm and it's not selfless service because I'm serving another person. It's a selfless service because I'm not trying to gain anything from that action. Right. I'm literally trying to do that action and have joy through that process.
Just because you like it.
Just because I like it. Yeah. And like the joy is something that also is another feeling that I think deserves like awareness as gratitude, because I think we are in this life to have joy.
Oh, yeah.
I think we are in this life to have fun. And fun and joy, like when they are attached, when they are like really in the center, like some magic happens. And it's like this fairy dust that like just permeates and like makes bends time, mm-hmm. right? Like bends time. You literally see like time flies and like I want to more, and the kid that don't want to go to home or don't want to leave the park, and that is the urgency as well that we have to treat every day like gratitude and like joy in our lives, I believe, because there's no time to waste, right? Like seeing people who have like every single reason to be miserable, be like in a really low place, and you see them smiling, you see them like cheering up, you see them telling jokes, you see them doing things that like someone with every single resource that they could have, and they are not even close to that vibration, and that remembrance like of what it looked like really ignites that feeling on me of, oh my god, like how can I have fun today? Like the question that you did as well for a long time, like in that topic of like what is that balance look like, and what is the practice that I do. For a long time I was in a really low point as well. I was really well with myself, but I was like upset with the outcomes of my life, or whatever thing that wasn't like in the fulfilling of this gratitude that I had. And I started like doing these questions for myself every day, which was like, how can I grow today? Who can I serve today? Who can I help today? What I'm grateful for. There's a fifth one that I cannot remember right now, but questions like that, like in a really selfless way of answering them, just like tuning in deep down in my heart, like really shining the light into things that are so valuable, so important for me, that has nothing to do where I am, with who I am, like how much money I'm carrying, like what I'm gaining that specific day, and really brought to another conversations like how I can have the most fun with that. How can I roll with this like there's no tomorrow, and have also the awareness of like not in the moment necessarily, like, but looking back and looking forward of like how that is deeply connected with do whatever it takes to get what I'm trying to get at, which most of the time the best ones are selfless, are completely detached of any specific outcome for myself, of my own fulfillment. Is literally like that life purpose mission that I'm driven by.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful the way you express that. And I think the only thing I would add on top of that is like not reaching burnout with doing whatever it takes, but also honoring self and knowing when it's too much, and knowing to take that time to self-care and to self-soothe without reaching that state of like, okay, now my cup is empty and I literally can't. I just have to stay home today and rest, you know, and finding that balance, which, you know, is a balance, you know. It takes practice to find that space of giving, and also not completely overexerting to the point of burnout, which can happen. But you know, we live and we learn and we adjust and find that balance. Well, Pablo, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a true honor and pleasure to have you on here today. And I think we can do a part 2 at some point down the road as well, to dive into some other topics a little deeper. But it's been an honor, brother. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invite, and thank you for being the light that you are, as I said. Appreciate you. Have an amazing day.
Thank you, brother. Take care, everyone. Until next time.